All right. Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis. We'll start off with the first fight here. César Almeida versus Dylan Budka. I'm going with César Almeida to I can't say comfortably, but going to win a decision over Dylan Budka. Budka's the type of grappler where he either crotch sniffs you, that's not a word, crotch sniff you, or hug you in a body lock against the cage and take about 3 minutes before he takes you down. And then when he takes you down, he doesn't really do that much damage. He's usually trying to either maintain control, probably as boring as Belal Muhammad, or look for the rear naked choke. When he does that, it's more entertaining. But he struggles to get the rear naked choke sometimes, because you'll notice that when he puts the opponent up against the fence, it's hard to get both your hooks in, because as your opponent, you can lean into the cage. And if you're César Almeida, who I'm picking to win via decision, by the way, which you might think Budka's more likely to do it, I think the reason he won't finish him is, with Almeida, he's very technical. He's not really like ruthless and looking to knock people out. It doesn't look like. It looks like he likes to throw like jabs to the body, stay on the outside and throw a leg kick. But for this one fight, he's going to have to fight in the middle. And I believe he's going to do more damage despite Budka just clinching him up against the cage like he's Tyson Fury. And because of that, César Almeida should win by decision or late finish in like round 3. And there is a thing where when there's like a 12th year edge or something, like 12th year in age, 64% of the time the younger fighter wins. But I don't think it will happen in this situation. This guy beat Alex Pereira beat him. And the striking differential is not going to be fair for Budka in this fight. I know he's younger, and on the Contender Series, he didn't even look that good, to be fair. He looked very basic, and there wasn't really much about him. So for me, I can only go with Almeida to win this fight by decision, by stopping the takedowns. And if he gets taken down, he's good at like getting on top of his opponent from being taken down. And he did it against that Lucas Fernando guy, who actually looked quite good, apart from the fact that he kept bottling these takedowns at times. Right, Jean Matsumoto versus Dan Argueta. I've got to go with Jean Matsumoto. At first I was thinking maybe Dan Argueta, because I saw like a fight in an old promotion of him and he gave away his back quite a few times and he got taken down a lot. But he doesn't do that anymore, so I am going with Jean Matsumoto to win via decision, because you'll notice that in his fight on the Contender, his combination style is very unique. It is one that you can't train for, because you don't know what he's going to throw, apart from the leg kick, which he will throw a left hook feint and then go straight into the right leg kick. And because he generates so much power, I believe that's going to pose a problem for Dan Argueta, because if he can eliminate that leg of Dan Argueta, where is he going to get the sprint to bounce up into takedowns? You need to use both of your legs to get them. You might argue you don't, but to be like good with both of your takedowns, you need to use both of your legs to generate that force. And if you do it on one leg against a guy like Matsumoto, who's got good takedown defense, he's showed on the Contender, you're not going to get him down. So I believe he's going to get a dead leg early. And then from that point, he's going to fail takedowns because he relies purely on athleticism. Like you look at that fight with Miles Johns. Miles Johns has got good takedown defense. He's quite short. He's compact. G Matsumoto is quite good at that as well. But his gas tank, I believe, is better than Miles, whose isn't great. And to be fair, he beat Ronnie Lawrence, which is a good fight, but that's because that guy's really a grappler. And he ends up getting submitted because Keith Peterson made him tap out. So you could say Keith Peterson caused this, which he did. And Matsumoto, I think he's just going to outstrike him after stopping these takedown takedown attempts. And it's going to cause Dan Argueta to get a bit more tired, and in round 3, just be get lit up by these combinations. A late scratch. It was meant to be Alatengheli, or I've forgotten his name, but now we've got Pedro Falcão versus Victor Hugo. And from the Contender Series, if you had to base them both, who do I think would win this fight? And looking at their previous fights, I've got to go with Victor Hugo by a submission, and I believe he should do it in the, I'll say second round, because I believe Falcao's takedowns, they're not great, but once he gets the takedown, he's good on the ground in terms of he likes to get the work done early in terms of doing damage. He might not get the finish early, but he's always looking to be active on the bottom. Unlike some fighters like Belal Muhammad, who just want to lie on top of you and just score points to win the fight. He don't do that. So this fight is actually quite hard for a guy like Falcão because Hugo's got good jiu-jitsu as well. And I believe Falcão kind of telegraphs the takedowns. So if you telegraph your takedowns against a guy with high-level jiu-jitsu, who's the type of guy getting heel hooks and he's getting knee bars, they're very hard submissions to do over a fully grown man. Think about it. You have to literally bend their leg in a certain angle to make them tap out. Like, when you think about how technical them type of submissions are, and to do it on the Contender as well, not just do it in these regional things where they're like, yeah, you might be fighting against a part-time plumber or something, or electrician. You're doing it in the Contender. And again, that guy, 16-1, by the way. And again, you might say he's been fighting cans, but it's still not an easy thing to do. Knee bar. It's a really high-level submission. And I believe he's going to catch Falcão in a guillotine because Falcão likes to, like I've mentioned before, like telegraph these takedowns, and I believe he's going to leave his head free, and then Hugo's going to be able to snatch it up, and he's just going to pose a dangerous threat on the ground. I think he'll have an alright first round by clinching him, hugging him against the cage, a bit like Budka. But then after that, in round 2, he's going to look to go to work and try and do it again, and Victor or Hugo will read that he's trying to go for them takedowns again, therefore looking for the guillotine choke and winning by submission in the second round. Right, McGee versus Alex Morono. For me, it would be stupid to pick McGee. I know you get them old fighters like Matt Brown who can still put a shift in. Like if you put him against Tony Ferguson, at this rate, probably KOs him. McGee's more of a grappling type of guy who's coming off a neck surgery. There is no way in hell that he beats Alex Morono. Morono ain't Kennedy and Chuck Wazoo. Like, he's not a bottle job like that. He's had a hard fight against Joaquin Buckley, who looks like he's doing very well in this division. And then you look at the fight with Santiago, which is a bit questionable. But to be fair, he was losing that fight and then comes out of nowhere with an overhand right and puts him down. So Morono's chin can be a bit suspect. I'm not going to lie to you. Even though he can win fights. Like even against Tim Means, he was getting beaten up with the boxing, but was able to grab a guillotine choke. He's either going to submit him or knock him out. But I believe he said on the, media day, that he's looking for a KO. And you can't always take in what they're saying, but I think it would only be logical to use striking against McGee rather than grapple against him, because he's old, coming off a neck surgery. If you can just pop his head back multiple times, like he's had standing TKOs, like he got it over Donald Cerrone, and I believe he's good at marching people down and throwing hooks. So the type of knockout I see him getting is like a left hook, which puts I sound a bit Scottish now, and then finish him pretty much, because McGee's just washed, old, boring. And I know you can be boring and good, but he's just old and washed. Been out for almost a year after getting brutally KO'd and back-to-back KOs as well. Not good on the brain, plus the age. Morono should win this by KO in the first round. Trevor Peek versus Charlie Campbell. I believe this fight here will arguably be fight of the night. And I'm going with Trevor Peek to win the fight. And I believe, even though I said it would be fight of the night, I'm going with a late finish in round 3. With Charlie Campbell, he's very technical on the feet. Look at how he schooled Dominic Reyes' brother. But then again, he's about 38 years of age fighting at lightweight. That's not fair. And he was inactive as well. Not Charlie Campbell, but his opponent. And when he fought against Chris Duncan, this was the one that kind of concerns me and kind of edged me towards picking Trevor Peek. Because with Charlie Campbell, he can get over-aggressive. I know he didn't do it against Alex Reyes, but when you come up against a guy like Trevor Peek, where if you hurt him, really you shouldn't try and finish him, but because of the way how his body will fall to the ground, because when you swing wild, you open up yourself to being countered so heavily. And I believe he will drop Trevor Peek in this fight early, and he will jump onto it, and then he'll get caught. And then that'll be kind of a wake-up call to be like, I need to be careful with this guy. And then I believe he will be doing well in round 2. And I believe he will actually be outstriking Trevor Peek. I believe he will be winning the fight. And then round 3, Trevor Peek's the type of guy where when he's losing, he looks for a finish. He tries to do everything in his power, even if it don't work. Like look at that Chepe Mariscal fight. Chepe Mariscal was quite good, to be fair. Like underrated before this fight. And he was just trying to swing at him whilst he was looking for takedowns and stuff. And it just weren't working, even in the third round, getting countered quite a few times. But he just keeps going, a bit like Nate Landwehr. But then again, Nate Landwehr's technique's better than Peek. Peek's just a brawler who you would see in the pub trying to get into a fight with no technique and just swinging. But it works because he just has power. And I believe if he touches this guy, Charlie Campbell, which he will, is going to hurt him. And I believe third round is where the finish will come after losing. Valter Walker versus Łukasz Brzeski. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm going with Valter Walker decision. And listen, you're going to see he gets a load of KOs and be like, oh, you should be going back at. No. In my opinion, he actually looks shocking. If you go and look at his fights, look at his most recent fight. His striking is woeful. Brzeski has a chance to make Valter Walker look silly on the feet and win by decision. But do you know the reason why he won't win? Because of the weight. Łukasz Brzeski looks quite small, as it is. Valter Walker looks like a super heavyweight. So, no matter how good you think Brzeski's striking might be, I don't think it's going to work, because when you come up against a guy who just dwarfs you in size, who can wrestle even though his wrestling isn't that technical, it's just, again, purely based off his genetics and how strong and big he is, I think Łukasz Brzeski is going to struggle quite heavily. Even though on paper, Brzeski is a way better fighter than him. And I'm surprised how Valter Walker's 11-0. He must have fought some absolute cans. And every guy he fights is usually smaller than him by a lot. And Łukasz Brzeski looks like the type of guy who is also going to be smaller than him. And I believe because of that, he is going to get taken down. And once he takes him down, look what Carl Williams was able to do with him. He was just ragdolling him. Carl Williams is a far superior grappler than Valter Walker. That would be a good fight to see in the future, but I want to say Brzeski has a chance, but I have to think logically, because I look at this fight here. It's not just the Carl Williams, like the Boudet fight. I believe he won that fight. That was a robbery. But you're looking at the fights here, like when he got KO'd by Walter Cortez Acosta, that kind of worried me, because he's not really a power guy. He's more of a technical. Nah, I wouldn't even call him technical, because he's not that technical. He's improving, but he's just not that good. Walter Cortez Acosta, just jab, very basic, doesn't check leg kicks. But again, Walter is just going to win based off his size alone. He isn't going to do anything that will shock you. He's just going to go out there, miss a bunch of punches, get counted, bring him down, and then just, because he's just a super behemoth, or whatever you want to call him, lay on top of him. And he could KO him late, but I think he's going to go to a decision and just lie on top of him and try and secure a win. Christos Giagos. In my opinion, he's just one of those basic UFC fighters who he can fight some of the low-ranked guys, put a shift in, but not do anything special. Ignacio Bahamondes, quite lanky, very good with the range. It's actually quite shocking to see that he actually lost to Ludovic Klein, who's a far shorter guy than him, and they weren't even fighting in the pocket for the majority of the fight. It was a lot of it actually out of range and sometimes coming into the pocket. So imagine what Ignacio Bahamondes will do to Christos Giagos, who was basic in my opinion. He's just going to kick him in the body and beat him up on the outside because his height is good. And I know Ludovic Klein was able to have success, but I believe he might struggle against guys that are a bit shorter. But then you might disagree, like the John Makadesi. But to be fair, he's not that tall either. Like, he struggles against the shorter guys. Because when you're fighting a shorter guy and you're at range, it should be quite simple. You just stay out of range and use your reach. But it can't be. Because you've got these small guys who like to level change and then like pressure you a lot to get into range because they can't fight you out of range. So they've got to come into the pocket. But Ludovic Klein was able to actually fight in the outside and mix it up a little bit. But I think Giagos is going to get schooled in this fight like we saw Daniel Selhaba school Prado. So I'm going with Bahamondes' decision. Morgan Charriere versus Chepe Mariscal. Very close fight, but I am going to go with Morgan Charriere to win a 29-28 decision over Chepe Mariscal. Mariscal's beaten the names of Pat Sabatini. He's now beaten Jack Jenkins by, his shoulder got injured, but he was coming back into that fight before the finish. And I know you might say it was a bit of a fluke, but to be fair, he did throw him so that he landed on his shoulder, which then caused the injury. Yeah, it's upsetting that happened, but he still won the fight. And Trevor Peake, he made him look a bit silly. He was just swinging for the fence, while Chepe Mariscal showed that he actually has got good counter-striking. And then you look at Morgan Charriere. To me, the only problem with him will be cardio in this fight past the second round. Because I can see him winning the first 2 rounds. Like, he will definitely win the first round because he starts off very energetic, throwing loads of kicks to the body. And he can also kick low. And I believe Chepe Mariscal wants a guy who's going to walk him down and get close into the pocket so it can allow him to get his body locks and look for takedowns and stuff. But I don't think Morgan Charriere will do that because he's very light on the feet and he stays on the outside whilst kicking. So although he's walking you down, he's not like walking you down into range where he's looking to land hooks. He's looking to land his rangy combinations like his jab, his cross, his leg kicks, his kick to the body. That's what he's trying to do. And I believe he has got the ability to do it. And you might look at both of these and think, why are they on the main card? Like, look at their record. When you look at the opponents that they've fought and the opponents that they've beat, it actually makes sense and it's not actually bad when you're looking record for record. Like, this guy fought Jordan Vucinic, who should be in the UFC, Morgan Charriere. Arguably could have beaten him. Plus, he also he fought Paul Hughes, another guy who should be in the UFC as well. And he held his own in there for the first few rounds until he got a bit tired. Chepe Mariscal, same thing. Morgan Charriere's beating people like William Gomes. Chepe Mariscal's beating people like Pat Sabiatini, which is a good win to have on your record. So, for me, Charriere, I think, is going to be able to dictate the tempo, which will then lead to him winning the fight, 29-28. Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson. For me, Damon Jackson just can't compete with the striking of Alexander Hernandez. Alexander Hernandez has fell off massively, like 14-7. Like, the guy KO'd Beneil Dariush, which now probably hasn't aged too well considering that he hasn't really got a good chin. And Damon Jackson, on the other hand, he's also knocked out Pat Sabiatini. I know I was on about him a minute ago, but that's a good win to have. Like, he dropped him. But imagine if he goes out there and drops Alexander Hernandez. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised, but it won't happen. So I do believe that Alexander Hernandez should be able to win this by KO in the second round because he's usually a slow starter and Damon Jackson's not really a strong wrestler. He's got good jiu-jitsu, so if he can get you down, he's always looking to get like a choke on you. But he's not like very good at just mounting you, ground and pounding you and just making sure you can't move on the ground. He's very good at like attacking your limbs and looking for them joint submissions. But I think because Alexander Hernandez level changes a lot and he's light on the feet, it's going to make it easier to prevent the takedowns and then be able to blitz him with the 1-2. And I know Alexander Hernandez hasn't looked great recently, but you can't trust Damon Jackson's chin. Like, it is just woeful. And I believe Alexander Hernandez is just a bad matchup for him because he'll just end up, maybe even in the first round, but I think second round, he's just going to come out, level change 1-2, and it will put him down. He won't be able to take a punch from him because Alexander Hernandez, you'll see that he's fought quite a few strikers, but to be fair, you could argue he's fought a mix because Jim Miller, he's a striker, but he can grapple. He's fought guys with a mixture of things, but you look at the opponents he's lost to, they are good, but some of them are winnable. Like, Jim Miller should have been more comfortable. Like, you have people saying Jim Miller should have won that fight. And the Bill Algeo as well, that was just a fight where it wasn't a good matchup because he's just light on the feet and the footwork was just causing him problems. But for me, Alexander Hernandez is just levels above Damon Jackson. He can't compete with striking. It's not good enough. And he's older as well, so plus the damage, yeah, he ain't winning that. Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis. I'm going with Brendan Allen to win the fight by a third round submission. And the reason I've picked third round submission is I know Chris Curtis beat him and it weren't a fluke because it was one of them fights where Chris Curtis, he doesn't start off the round quite fast enough. He takes his time but then can grow. And he caught him with the perfect shot because Brendan Allen back then, no head movement. He wasn't as light on the feet, got caught a bit flat-footed at times. Brendan Allen's a much more improved striker now. He's usually in and out, 1-2. His footwork's a bit better. It's nothing special, but it's better than it was before. Chris Curtis has shown that his strikings fell off a little bit. Like, after that loss to Kelvin Gastelum, which some people thought he won, I don't think he did. It's kind of gone downhill because Nasruddin Imavov was just bullying him in all areas, especially with the grappling, where just getting him up against the cage and just trapping all of his limbs and he couldn't move. And then you had the Marc-Andre Barrios. Although he won that, you've got some people saying that Andre Barrios should have won, and it was like a really close fight when it shouldn't have been. He should have been knocking him out, really, deep down. But it's because he doesn't throw enough, and that's why I'm not going with like an early finish by Allen. Like, Chris Curtis is more likely to get a finish early than Allen due to the fact that Allen, even though I've just said that Curtis takes a while to get going, he's got that one punch power. And Allen's that guy where because Curtis is quite durable, it's hard to put away early. And to beat him, you've got to really do something to him. Like, you've really got to sink it underneath the neck. And people aren't really good at that. Look at Rodolfo Vieira when he tried to get all those takedowns. He stuffed them. But I think Brendan Allen doesn't have to just shoot him with those those double legs like he did. There'll be a better setup on the takedown, which will make it harder to defend. Push him up against the cage. And then from there, look to get onto the back and look for the submission. And that's how I think he'll win the fight. Or if Curtis is going to win, I believe it will have to be a fourth round. I know I said he could do it early, but that's like what percentage would I give it? A 20% case scenario. But I'm talking about the most likely thing for Curtis to win this would be, I doubt he'll win a decision. He don't do enough to win a decision. He'd have to win the last 2 rounds and get a 10-8 in both of them to make that possible. And with Brendan Allen, he's just faster at starting. So I believe he's just going to get outworked on the feet and not keep up with the pace and end up getting submitted third round. Because that Allen showed that his grappling has improved. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.